Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, chapter 901 of One Piece is out. So if you haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so, cause I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. Oh man, this chapter is controversial, and I'll admit to being part of the controversy after I first read it. Honestly guys, I would have enjoyed this chapter a million times more had I not forgotten key elements of the story of One Piece and Jinbei's character. But yeah, huge shout out to my Twitter squad for setting me straight. Now I know that a lot of people are not going to like this chapter, and I want to provide an explanation to maybe create understanding. Because I really believe that everything that occurred in this chapter makes sense and has been set up sometimes for many hundreds of chapters. But yeah, as of the end of last chapter, the Thousand Sunny was destroyed, and we found out in this chapter that it was actually saved by Waratsume, who ate the Thousand Sunny, and then the Sun Pirates then made a promise or decided to defend the Straw Hats and Jinbei to the death. They intended on, or they believed strongly in the possibility that they would die. And while Luffy was willing to accept that, Jinbei was not. And so Jinbei is going to stay behind in order to help the Sun Pirates. And Luffy and the rest of the crew are going to continue on to Wano. And so there's a lot of different reasons why people are mad. One reason people are mad is because Jinbei decided to go against the wishes of the Sun Pirates and stay behind. Others are mad because they've been anticipating Jinbei officially joining the crew forever, and it just seems to be put off time and time again. Others are mad at Luffy, who is essentially leaving Jinbei to his death. Jinbei is in a seemingly winless or unwinnable situation, and Luffy's just kind of allowing it. How is that within Luffy's character? And even beyond this, we begin this arc with the premise that the idea was to go into Big Mom's territory in order to rescue a Straw Hat, in order to rescue Sanji. And now we are leaving Whole Cake Island and Sanji is rescued, and we're leaving behind another Straw Hat. We're leaving behind Jinbei. So we went in trying to retrieve one Straw Hat, and we're leaving one behind. And lastly guys, and this is probably the reason why, all these other reasons I may have been mad about before, but I'm no longer mad because I think that I understand. But this reason is still a reason for me to be mad. A lot of the actions of this arc are pointless. And I think that it may be by design, but it still makes me angry. If I'm only angry about these circumstances and feeling what it is that Oda intends for me to feel because of the dawning realization of what it means to oppose a Yonko. But anyway guys, let's cover these in order. And so, Jinbei is not willing to abandon the Sun Pirates. And so the way that this makes sense is you guys got to keep in mind that Jinbei was the captain of the Sun Pirates. These are his best mates. These are his best friends. These are his nakama. Luffy has time and time again accepted the sacrifices of those willing to sacrifice themselves or wanting to sacrifice themselves in order to protect Luffy and help him escape. But that doesn't mean that Jinbei would act in the same way. The only way to accurately compare this to something Luffy would do is if you put the Straw Hats in a situation where all of the Straw Hats decided that they were willing to die, sacrifice themselves. They intended on losing several members and dying for the sake of Luffy. What would Luffy do in that situation? And honestly, guys, we do not know. And in fact, I'm doubtful that the Straw Hat Pirates would ever do that because their dreams are too important to them. Even if they were in the same situation and they did the same thing as the Sun Pirates, they would never accept the possibility of defeat or death. They would fight with the belief that they would win. But ignoring that, in a situation as dire as this, I doubt Luffy would abandon them. As soon as the Sun Pirates made it clear their intentions on what might occur, Jinbei couldn't abandon them. It's pretty much as simple as that. And so from this point, many people are saying, well, Jinbei wouldn't abandon the Sun Pirates, but instead he chooses to abandon the Straw Hats by sacrificing himself, along with his crew. And so guys, this might be true. This definitely seems what is most likely. But it is not what Jinbei told Luffy would happen. Jinbei told Luffy that they will win. And this is such an important distinction, because the moment in which Jinbei tells Luffy that they will win, then being a member of the Straw Hat crew, trust is one of the most vital things which allows the crew to exist and operate. If a crew member says that they will do something but Luffy does not trust them to do it, then they will never become the crew of the Pirate King. What will Luffy do every time they are in a dire, unwinnable situation? Will he not allow them to do their job, do what is necessary for them to succeed? Is he gonna babysit them all the time? The crew puts their faith in Luffy, and Luffy puts his faith in the crew. This is how things are. This is how they operate. Jinbei did not know how Luffy was going to be able to defeat Katakuri, yet he believed that he would. And he did. And now it's time for Luffy to do the same. Even though it is very clear from this chapter that Luffy does not know how Jinbei will succeed. In this moment, Luffy has to trust Jinbei. You say you will do something, then I believe that you will do it. And so Jinbei said what he said in this last chapter, but I think one of the hard elements to understand is how Jinbei himself can believe it. Luffy fighting against Katakuri or Doflamingo is one thing. Jinbei fighting against the vast majority of the Big Mom pirates with Big Mom on her way is something completely different. And I think that the answer lies within Jinbei's character, which Oda has set up for hundreds of chapters. I was rereading the Impel Down arc when we first got introduced to Jinbei, and Jinbei essentially reveals that he is a man of faith, that he is a believer in miracles. As strange as this might sound, I believe that Jinbei is confident that a miracle will occur, and he's willing to accept the consequences if he is wrong. You know, for the longest time, I viewed Jinbei as a self-sacrificial character, and recently I just realized that may not necessarily be the case. Jinbei doesn't necessarily sacrifice himself for others. He just believes strongly in fate. Right now, Jinbei believes more than anything that he is destined to help Luffy become the Pirate King. But he cannot abandon his crew. So staying true to himself, he must help the crew. And if he holds it true that he will help Luffy become the Pirate King, then he will survive. It's literally that simple. How Oda chooses to handle this, though, will be oh so critical as to my judgment of it in the future. If Jinbei just appears in Wano with the rest of the Sun Pirates, and it's not epic or exciting in any way other than they fought for a little bit. We managed to survive. We ended up heading under the water just before Big Mom got there. People won't like that. If Jinbei ends up dying, I'm not certain how people will feel about that either. I think that Oda will need to flex his creativity. But moving on from this, a lot of people are comparing what Jinbei is doing now to what Sanji did at the beginning of the arc. How is Luffy going to trust Jinbei here but not trust Sanji? And so the key thing here is that Luffy always goes to confirm the crew's intentions face to face. He wants to hear them say it to his face. And he can tell when they are lying. Luffy could tell that Robin was a liar, and so he followed her to the ends of the earth to get a proper explanation. And when she finally did explain the circumstances, she revealed that she wanted to return to the crew. Luffy looked for Sanji, followed him to Whole Cake Island in order to understand the situation, and as soon as he did, it became blatantly clear that Sanji wanted to be rescued. He needed to be rescued. And in this case with Jinbei, Jinbei does not. Jinbei does not believe that he needs help. And that's the difference. A lot of people are saying that Luffy would never leave a Straw Hat crew member in a situation like this, but it's not true. In fact, we have evidence from the story that specifically contradicts this. Luffy watched Mihawk kill Zoro and did nothing. Zoro believed that he will one day become the world's strongest swordsman, and in doing that, he would need to defeat Mihawk. And in chapter 49 and 50 of One Piece, Zoro met Mihawk and decided this would be the moment that he would defeat him. At no point in time did Zoro believe that he would lose until he had lost. Zoro could not accept defeat in the first place. He told Mihawk, "I would rather die than be defeated." It is for that reason that Zoro didn't take a step back from Mihawk, because doing so would admit something that Zoro wasn't ready to do. It would shame his convictions and beliefs, and therefore Luffy had to trust him to win. And so up until the moment in which Zoro was stabbed in the heart and then slashed across the chest, Luffy was there watching. He wasn't happy about it, but to the very end he continued to trust Zoro. And even though Zoro ended up losing to Mihawk, that trust that Luffy put into Zoro was still not misplaced, because a miracle saved him. He convinced Mihawk that he would be worthy of him in the future. And I really think that Jinbei is going to need a very similar miracle. But yeah, moving on to the next thing, a lot of people really expected this to be the official arc in which Jinbei joins, but even if he's technically a part of the Strat crew right now, he's not really joined yet because there's so much doubt as to what his fate will be. And that just has people irritated, like they've been waiting for Jinbei to join the crew since forever, some people even since before the time skip. And all I gotta say to this is that we should be patient. If you expect something to occur at a specific time or faster, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment, and you're only doing yourself a disservice. Oda does things when it's convenient for the story, not when it's convenient for your expectations. But yeah, we're 10 minutes in, and we're not quite at the thing that I really want to talk about, which is the fact that many things that occurred in this arc are entirely pointless. You came in with the idea of rescuing a Straw Hat, and then you leave the arc leaving behind a Straw Hat. Now I know that this can be explained as Sanji needing help and Jinbei not needing help, and that is the explanation, but it still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. These Straw Hats could have left after chapter 855 and 56 of One Piece. They had all the Strat crew safe and sound. The Big Mom Pirates did not know that they were free. They could have left, but they chose not to because Sanji said that they needed to stay behind in order to rescue the Vinsmokes and rescue Zeph. And here we stand at chapter 902, presumably at the end of Whole Cake Island, and neither the Vinsmoke nor Zeph are in any way in a better situation than they were. You can argue the Vinsmokes as being saved and then choosing to put themselves back into danger, and because of the element of choice, it makes a difference. I get it, but it still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And in regards to Zeph, Revujo basically told Sanji to think about Zeph later. That's like straight up what she said. I understand that he's in danger, but figure it out once you have escaped. A lot of people are under the misconception that the only reason why Zeph was in danger was because of the Vinsmoke, but that is not true. Big Mom is stated to kill those who reject an invitation to her tea party, which essentially means that Big Mom will kill the friends and family of anybody who crosses her. Meaning Zeph could die, anyone Luffy has ever known could die, Fishman Island could die. Everyone is in danger while Big Mom is their enemy. So Sanji literally, I guess, has just chose to ignore this until they get to safety. He has ignored the entire reason why he decided to go in the first place. As of right now, Peckham's going so long is pointless, because he didn't actually do anything to help them escape. Not really. And I'm not trying to say all these things to be salty or be angry to be angry, but to me it's just how I see it. There's certain things that were included in the story for seemingly a purpose that never really had any payoff whatsoever. But the reason for the lack of payoff in all of these situations, and including some that I didn't mention, is basically because the Strats are dealing with the Big Mom Pirates. They came in with ideas, with aspirations, with expectations, and everything was crushed. With the exception of getting the rubbing of the Poneglyph and rescuing Sanji, trading him for Jinbei. This arc can only be described as a huge failure for the Strats. They are leaving with less people than they came with, and they didn't achieve anything near what they wanted to. This is not a happy ending, and honestly guys, I think that it makes sense that it's not. But at the same time, it makes me a little bit angry. If I'm only angry at the situation. This is the kind of arc which will force the Strats to grow. And in fact, I think that the Strats have already grown just by being here. Luffy left so happy. Oh yeah, we're gonna go into a Yonko's territory. It's gonna be so easy. We're gonna rescue Sanji. And he left, fearing for everyone's safety. Now he knows. And Zoro can't say that he didn't warn him. And no person should feel worse about this than Sanji. Keeping in mind, guys, that Sanji initially came here because of the threat over Zeph's life. And Sanji is now leaving. After pissing off a Yonko, he is now leaving, not having guaranteed his safety. So it's almost as if Sanji never need go in the first place. If Sanji had never left in the first place, none of this would have happened. I thought it was really interesting earlier in the arc when Brook decided to not tell Sanji that Pedro had died. I now fully understand why Brook didn't say anything. How would Sanji feel about that now? How would Sanji feel about Jinbei appearing to sacrifice himself for the Straw Hat crew? About the lives of the Fishman pirates, the lives of his family, who he intended to save, but in the end, his actions also is probably going to lead to their deaths. The person who will be bearing the weight of the calamity of this arc if it ends is Sanji. Everyone expected a climactic year of Sanji and we got it, but it happened in the exact opposite way that we would have expected. Rather than Sanji ending off happy, he's now been crushed in every possible way emotionally, or will be soon. You guys can expect a video on this sometime soon. But yeah, guys, I guess the greater question is, where does it go from here? And so in this chapter, we learn that Charlotte Moscato is alive. And the reason that he is alive is set up, I believe, in like chapter 832-ish. Basically, Mondor asks the Black Blob Shadow Homies, which contain Big Mom's own soul and have her Devil Fruit ability, to collect his lifespan. They said specifically every second of it. And so the conclusion here, obviously, is that this lifespan that was taken from Moscato was collected and then given back to him. A lot of people are under the misconception that once life is taken, it cannot be given back to a human body, but this is actually a mistranslation. It cannot be given to another living person. So that lifespan can go back into its original body, or into an inanimate object. So that's most likely what happened with Moscato, and what it sets up, basically guys, is that anybody who has ever had their lifespan taken by Big Mom can be revived, if they are dead. This sets up more than anything else, guys. If Pedro is dead, if Pound is dead, they can come back to life, because Big Mom has taken their lifespan and spread it across Whole Cake Island. If the Big Mom pirates end up capturing the Sun Pirates and Peckham's and Jinbei and the Vinsmoke, or Capone, whoever they capture, and they take their lifespan, that lifespan can be returned to them. Now, these circumstances which might set something like this up are entirely not clear, but it sets up the possibility. And straight up, guys, I think that you should be highly suspicious of something like this occurring because Oda hasn't explained what happened to Moscato. If the whole point of Moscato being alive was to revive Moscato, then I think that Oda would need to explain that to settle our curiosity. But if Moscato being alive is set up for somebody else coming to life, then I do not think that Oda would reveal the secret to his life until it's relevant for the story. So in order to make this clear, guys, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. What I believe is going to happen. Jinbei speaks of a miracle. Luffy specifically said, even if you die, don't die. Maybe Jinbei actually dies. Maybe he gets captured, Big Mom takes his lifespan, but something happens in order for him to get back the lifespan stolen. How or why are not questions I can answer. But anyway, guys, I've said for the longest time that I don't see how this arc could end without certain things happening to Big Mom or them resolving the conflict in some way. But this chapter really does feel like the end of Whole Cake Island to me. It honestly feels like the most depressing end to an arc that we have gotten since maybe the end of Marineford or Sabaody. And truthfully, it might be worse than both. And that's what makes it work. At this point in time, I think that we should believe that once Big Mom takes care of, or doesn't, everyone who is on Coco Island, that she will chase the Strats to Wano. That was 100% what the Strats feared, and the reason why they fed her the cake, that she would chase them to the ends of the planet. And there is no reason for that to change right now. If the Straw Hats get away with the current circumstances, the Big Mom pirates will follow them. And if Jinbei and the Sun Pirates and the Vinsmoke and Peckham's and everyone that they've ever cared about gets defeated along the way, I would not be surprised if Big Mom brought their dead bodies with her to show them. And this will force the Straw Hats and Oda to deal with the unresolved plots concerning Big Mom and her past and her rage and her family and all of that. That will have to be dealt in Wano because there's no way the Straw Hats are dealing with both Kaido and Big Mom, period. And as you guys will know, Big Mom still does not realize that Sanji was the person to make her this cake. I'm still interested to see what Big Mom's reaction would be to that information. I don't want to say that this is going to be off screen, but if Big Mom strolls into Cacao Island and reveals the truth about Sanji and how he made the cake, it could change everything. Another thing that I thought was interesting about this chapter was the cover story, in which we got to meet Girth, who is part of the Giant Pirates. And so, as you guys should remember, Girth was actually the little girl from Big Mom's flashback. She was basically Big Mom's best friend. And she also happens to be a doctor, which is so damn coincidental because Big Mom is the one person in the pirate world who needs a doctor. Guys, continuing with the idea that Big Mom will follow Luffy to Wano, there's a lot of speculation that Luffy will end up needing the Straw Hat Grand Fleet in Wano. The Straw Hat Grand Fleet obviously has Hydrogen and all of the giants, including Girth. With this ship of giants alone, all of the unresolved conflict between the giants and Big Mom can be resolved, and it does not have to occur in Elbaf. And this is only possible because Girth is with them. Because remember, as I said earlier, Girth was Big Mom's best friend when she was a child. That's the one person that we looked at and we're like, yup, she needs to know the truth. But at the same time, guys, I could totally see this arc not ending in the next chapter. All you need is a reason for these Straw Hats to stay, or being forced to stay for some reason, and you could get all of the resolution in the Whole Cake Island arc that we have been expecting this entire time. Now, I don't particularly believe that we will get a Buster Call, specifically with the reaction of Stussy in the last chapter. It does not feel particularly likely to me. That being said, guys, if there were to be a Buster Call right now, stopping the Straw Hats from leaving, man, that would be some crazy stuff. This is like the perfect setup for it. Minus ominous vibes from Stussy. But yeah, guys, a chapter which really didn't have the effect that it should have the first time I read through. The second and third time, once understanding the chapter fully, my god, this is such an amazing chapter of One Piece. The implications alone, specifically with Sanji, the fact that Sanji was not shown in this chapter at all, has so much more meaning to me. I honestly think that this chapter, and understanding it fully, helped me better appreciate and understand the story of One Piece. Things that I had forgotten, things that I hadn't realized. It forces you to think deeper about everything. That's an accomplishment. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I have to say today. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys have to say about this, whether you agree or disagree, and why. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.